3,000 years ago, a blind poet sang of a man who wandered 10 years to find his way home. The song has never stopped echoing. Tell me, Muse, of that man of many ways who wandered far after he sacked the holy citadel of Troy. So begins the greatest journey story ever told, words that have sailed across millennia like ships seeking harbour. Homer's voice reaches through time, carrying within it the salt of ancient seas, the weight of exile, and the burning question that haunts every human heart: what does it mean to come home? Homer exists in shadow and legend, a figure as elusive as the gods he sings about. Was he one man or many? Did he walk the marble streets of ancient Greece? Or is he a collective memory, a name given to the voice of an entire civilization? The scholars debate, but the poetry endures. His blindness becomes a metaphor for the deepest sight, the ability to see beyond the surface of things into the heart of human experience. The Odyssey emerges from the 8th century BCE, when the Greek world was rebuilding itself from the ashes of the Bronze Age collapse. Cities were rising again, trade routes reopening, and the alphabet was being born. In this time of reconstruction, Homer gives voice to the primal human need for stories that make sense of chaos. His epic becomes a map of the soul, charting territories of loss and recovery, wandering and return. Odysseus stands on the wine-dark sea, salt spray stinging his weathered face. He is the archetypal traveller, the man who has seen too much and carries the weight of knowledge like a curse. His very name means trouble in Greek, and he embodies the contradiction of human existence. Blessed with intelligence that becomes his burden, gifted with curiosity that leads him astray. He is every person who has ever left home and discovered they can never truly return. The sea becomes a character in Homer's epic, vast and unpredictable, beautiful and terrible. It mirrors the unconscious mind, where monsters lurk beneath the surface and divine forces shape the currents of destiny. Each wave carries memory. Each storm represents the chaos that threatens to consume us. The sea is both path and prison, the medium through which Odysseus must navigate his way back to himself. Penelope waits at her loom, weaving by day and unravelling by night. Her tapestry becomes a perfect metaphor for time itself, for the way we create meaning through repetition and patience. She embodies the active power of waiting, the strength required to hold space for another's return. Her fidelity is not passive but creative, a daily choice to maintain the possibility of reunion against all odds. The sirens sing their deadly song, voices that promise knowledge of all things. Their melody represents the seductive power of absolute truth, the dangerous allure of wanting to know everything. Odysseus ties himself to the mast, choosing the pain of restraint over the sweet destruction of surrender. In this moment, Homer reveals the paradox of wisdom. Sometimes we must bind ourselves to survive our own desires. Circe's island shimmers with transformation magic. Here, men become beasts, revealing their true natures beneath the veneer of civilization. The sorceress represents the power of the feminine to see through masks, to strip away pretense. She offers Odysseus knowledge and warning, becoming both obstacle and guide. In her palace, he learns that the most dangerous journeys are internal, that the greatest monsters are the ones we carry within ourselves. The Cyclops Polyphemus embodies primitive fury, the raw power of nature unchecked by wisdom or hospitality. His single eye represents a narrow, brutal vision of the world, where might makes right and strangers are enemies. When Odysseus blinds him, it becomes a triumph of intelligence over brute force, but also a violation of the sacred laws of hospitality. The hero's cleverness becomes his hubris, earning him the wrath of Poseidon. Athena moves through the epic like divine intelligence made manifest, the goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare. She represents the power of the mind to find solutions where strength fails. Her protection of Odysseus speaks to the special relationship between wisdom and wandering, between intelligence and the courage to venture into the unknown. She is the voice that whispers, "Think before you act, but act nonetheless." The lotus eaters drift in their drugged paradise, having forgotten the very concept of home. They represent the temptation of escape, the desire to surrender the burden of memory and ambition. Their fate warns against the seductive power of forgetting, of choosing comfort over growth. They are alive but not living, existing in a state of perpetual present that erases both past and future. Hades opens its gates to reveal the pale shadows of the dead who cluster around Odysseus like moths to flame. The underworld becomes a mirror of the upper world, where the departed hunger for the warm blood of life. Here, Odysseus speaks with his mother, learning of her death and his own responsibility for her sorrow. The dead teach him that every choice carries weight, that our actions ripple through time and affect those we love. The bow of Odysseus waits in his palace, a weapon no pretender can string. It represents authentic power, the kind that cannot be faked or stolen, only earned through experience and maintained through virtue. When he finally draws it, the sound resonates like thunder, announcing the return of the rightful king. The bow becomes a symbol of identity itself, proof that we are who we claim to be. Telemachus embarks on his own journey, searching for news of his father. His quest represents the next generation's need to understand their inheritance, to discover what legacy they carry forward. The son's journey mirrors the father's, but in reverse. Instead of returning home, he ventures out into the world. Their paths will cross in the perfect timing of narrative necessity, when both are ready for reunion. The Phoenicians live in a golden age of peace and prosperity, their ships magical, their gardens eternal. They represent the ideal of civilized life, where art and hospitality flourish, where stories are honoured and strangers welcomed. They listen to Odysseus's tale with wonder, offering him safe passage home. In their court, the hero's experiences transform from suffering into story, from mere event into meaning. Scylla and Charybdis guard the narrow strait, representing the impossible choices that define human existence. The many-headed monster and the deadly whirlpool offer only loss. The question becomes what we can bear to sacrifice. Odysseus chooses the lesser evil, losing 6 men to save the rest. Homer reveals that heroism sometimes means accepting partial defeat, that wisdom lies in recognizing when we cannot win everything. The cattle of the sun graze on their sacred island, forbidden food that promises temporary satisfaction at the cost of divine wrath. They represent the fundamental human struggle between immediate need and long-term consequence. When Odysseus's hungry crew slaughters them, they choose survival over piety, revealing how desperation can override wisdom. Their fate becomes a meditation on the price of transgression. Ithaca emerges from the wine-dark sea, no longer the home Odysseus left, but a place transformed by time and his own transformation. The island has become a symbol, a destination that exists as much in the heart as on any map. His return is not a restoration, but a reimagining, a recognition that home is not a place we find, but a reality we create through choice and commitment. The disguise of the beggar strips away all external markers of identity, reducing the hero to pure essence. In rags and false skin, Odysseus becomes invisible, able to observe the truth of his household. This transformation teaches the deepest lesson, that true identity lies not in what we possess, but in who we choose to be when we have nothing left to lose. The recognition scene between Odysseus and Penelope unfolds like a careful dance, each partner testing the other's authenticity. Their secret about the olive tree bed becomes the key that unlocks 20 years of separation. This moment reveals that true intimacy is built on shared knowledge, on the accumulation of details that no imposter could know. Love becomes a form of authentication, a way of proving we are who we claim to be. The suitors feast in the great hall, consuming what they have not earned, wooing a woman who will not have them. They represent the corruption of hospitality, the abuse of sacred customs for personal gain. Their presence in the palace becomes a violation of cosmic order, a disruption that can only be resolved through violence. They are not merely men, but symbols of chaos that must be expelled for harmony to return. Blood flows in the great hall as Odysseus and Telemachus reclaim their home through violence. The slaughter of the suitors represents the necessary destruction that precedes renewal, the cleansing fire that burns away corruption. This moment forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that some problems cannot be solved through words alone, that justice sometimes requires the sword as well as the scale. The gods watch from Olympus, their divine politics reflecting and amplifying human conflicts. Poseidon's wrath drives the plot forward, while Athena's protection guides it toward resolution. Their intervention in mortal affairs reveals Homer's understanding that human life unfolds within larger patterns, that individual choices resonate with cosmic significance. We are both free and fated, masters and servants of our destiny. The oral tradition breathes life into every line, the poetry shaped by countless performances before countless audiences. Each recitation becomes a new creation, the words flowing like water finding its course. Homer's verses carry the rhythm of the human heart, the cadence of waves on shore, the pulse of life itself. The epic becomes a living thing, changing with each telling while maintaining its essential truth. The heroic age finds its voice in Odysseus's journey, that golden time when gods walked among mortals and individual actions could reshape the world. The epic preserves this vision while mourning its passing. Homer sings of a time when the stakes were cosmic, when personal choices carried divine weight. His nostalgia becomes our own, a longing for meaning that transcends the mundane struggles of everyday existence. The Mediterranean world spreads before us like a vast map of human possibility, each island a different challenge, each port a new perspective. The geography becomes psychological, external landscapes reflecting internal states. Ancient trade routes connect the dots between civilizations, carrying not just goods but stories, ideas, and dreams. The sea becomes a highway of the imagination, linking distant shores through shared narrative. The concept of xenia, sacred hospitality, weaves through every encounter, establishing the moral framework of the epic. Guests and hosts exist in a divine relationship, each bound by obligations that transcend personal interest. This ancient code reveals a worldview where strangers are potential gods in disguise, where every act of kindness or cruelty carries supernatural weight. Civilization itself depends on treating others as sacred. The epithet many-wayed defines Odysseus as a man of multiple paths, someone who embodies the complexity of human nature. He is warrior and diplomat, truth-teller and liar, faithful husband and unfaithful lover. This multiplicity reflects Homer's understanding that heroism is not simple virtue, but complex navigation of competing demands. The hero becomes fully human through contradiction, not despite it. The theme of Nostos, homecoming, resonates through every line, the burning desire to return to the place where we belong. But Homer reveals that true homecoming is not geographical but spiritual, not about arriving but about becoming. The journey changes the traveller, making return impossible in the literal sense. We can only go home by becoming worthy of home, by growing into the person who deserves what we have lost. The intervention of dreams and omens throughout the epic reveals a world where the divine communicates through symbol and metaphor. Reality becomes layered with meaning, every event potentially significant. This symbolic consciousness transforms the mundane into the mystical, suggesting that life itself is a kind of poetry, a pattern of meaning waiting to be decoded by those with eyes to see. The role of the bard within the epic reflects Homer's own position as keeper of cultural memory. The poet becomes a sacred figure, responsible for preserving and transmitting the stories that define a civilization. In Phaeacia, the blind singer Demodocus performs tales of Troy while Odysseus weeps, showing how art transforms pain into beauty, how stories help us process experiences too large for ordinary understanding. The feminine principle moves through the epic in multiple forms: the faithful wife, the seductive goddess, the wise counselor, the dangerous sorceress. Each represents different aspects of the feminine divine, different ways of relating to the world. Homer's women are not passive victims, but active agents, each wielding power in her own sphere. They represent the forces that both threaten and nurture the hero's journey, the necessity of engaging with the other. The concept of time in the epic flows like honey, thick and golden, measured not by clocks but by seasons, by the rhythm of planting and harvest, by the patient work of waiting and hoping. 20 years pass like a single breath, yet each moment carries the weight of eternity. Homer reveals that significance, not duration, determines the value of time, that some experiences reshape us instantly, while others require decades to unfold. The influence of the Odyssey on Western literature cannot be measured or contained. Every journey story, every tale of homecoming, every narrative of transformation bears its genetic code, from Dante's Divine Comedy to Joyce's Ulysses, from the Aeneid to modern road novels. Writers continue to navigate by Homer's stars, finding in his ancient story the eternal patterns that shape human experience. The psychological depth of the epic anticipates modern understanding of trauma and healing. Odysseus returns from war carrying invisible wounds, struggling to reconnect with a world that has moved on without him. His journey becomes a process of integration, of learning to live with what he has seen and done. Homer's ancient wisdom speaks directly to contemporary struggles with PTSD, displacement, and the challenge of returning to ordinary life after extraordinary experience. The epic's treatment of loyalty and betrayal reveals the fragility of human bonds, the way trust can be broken by time, temptation, and desperation. The loyal swineherd contrasts with the treacherous maidservants, showing how crisis reveals character. Each relationship becomes a test, a choice between immediate advantage and long-term faithfulness. Homer suggests that loyalty is not a feeling but a decision, renewed daily through small acts of devotion. The role of suffering in the epic transforms pain from meaningless affliction into necessary education. Odysseus's trials teach him patience, humility, and the true value of home and family. This ancient understanding of suffering as teacher rather than punishment offers a framework for finding meaning in difficulty. The hero's pain becomes purposeful, each setback a step toward wisdom. The epic's circular structure mirrors the cycles of nature, of life and death, of departure and return. The end connects to the beginning, revealing that all journeys are ultimately circular, all destinations really homecomings. This cyclical vision suggests that growth occurs not through linear progress but through spiral return, each revolution carrying us higher while covering familiar ground. We return to where we started, but see it with new eyes. The contemporary relevance of the Odyssey grows stronger rather than weaker with time. In our age of displacement and migration, of virtual journeys and digital wandering, Homer's ancient story speaks with urgent relevance. Every refugee, every immigrant, every person seeking their place in an uncertain world carries something of Odysseus within them. The epic becomes a mirror for our own struggles with identity, belonging, and the meaning of home. The song continues, echoing through classroom and coffee shop, through scholarly symposium and bedtime story. Homer's voice reaches across the centuries, reminding us that some truths are too important to forget, some stories too essential to let die. In the end, the Odyssey teaches us that we are all wanderers seeking home, all exiles hoping for return, all humans struggling to make sense of the chaos and beauty of existence. The wine-dark sea still calls, and we still answer, carrying within us the eternal hope that somewhere, somehow, we might find our way home.